The galaxy liked to laugh at symbols. It laughed at failed heirs, forgotten worlds, and quiet assignments meant to make a point. When the Concord announced that Princess Valeth of House Thriss would be exiled to a barren research planet, most species did not care. When they learned who would guard her, they laughed openly. A single human. No honor guard. No psionic knights. No bioengineered sentinels grown for loyalty and strength. Just one human named Elias Ward, wearing standard-issue armor and carrying an old pattern rifle. The assignment was seen as deliberate mockery. Valeth was already called the Barren Princess, a title spoken with polite cruelty. To place a human over her safety felt like an insult added to exile. House Thriss valued one thing above all others: fertility. Their society was built around bloodlines, genetic strength, and the ability to produce heirs who could carry power forward. Valeth had failed every biological test since adolescence. Her body did not respond to the hormonal triggers her species relied on. Her genome showed no defects, no damage, and no illness, yet it did not perform as expected. That made her worse than broken. It made her useless. The Concord decided she was too valuable politically to execute and too embarrassing to keep, so they sent her away. Officially, she was placed under protective observation. In reality, she was erased. The planet she was sent to had no real name, only a catalog number. It was cold, rocky, and thin in atmosphere. It could support life only inside sealed structures. There were no cities, no orbiting stations, and no trade routes nearby. It was the kind of place chosen when no one was meant to visit again. Valeth arrived in silence. She did not speak during the transfer. Her posture was perfect. Her expression controlled. But inside she felt hollow. She had learned long ago that protest only gave others satisfaction. When she stepped onto the planet's surface, she did not look back at the transport as it departed. Elias Ward followed her down the ramp, carrying equipment rather than ceremony. He did not bow. He did not avert his eyes. He simply walked beside her, matching her pace, as if this was the most normal assignment in the universe. Valeth noticed that first. Most guards treated her like glass or waste. Elias treated her like terrain. Something to move with, not around. The Concord observers watched for the first few weeks through long-range systems. They expected boredom, isolation, and eventual mental collapse. That was the usual outcome. Instead, they saw routine. Elias established perimeter checks. He ran diagnostics on life support. He cataloged supplies. Every action was methodical, unremarkable, and calm. He spoke little, and when he did, it was only what was needed. Valeth spent her days inside the research wing. She had been granted access to basic biological databases, though most of the advanced systems were locked. The Concord did not expect her to discover anything new. The data was more a courtesy than a tool. She worked anyway. She studied her own species again, even though it hurt. Charts, scans, historical records. Every failed subject looked like her. Perfect in structure, empty in outcome. She had memorized these results years ago, but she read them again, searching for something everyone else had missed. Elias never interrupted her. He stood outside the lab when she worked. He stood outside her quarters when she slept. He stood in silence when storms battered the planet's thin shields. He did not comment on her status or her past. He did not use her title unless required by protocol. After 3 months, Valeth finally spoke to him. "You know why I am here," she said, without turning from her console. "Yes," Elias replied. "You know what they call me." "Yes. And you still stand there." "Yes." She turned then, her dark eyes sharp. "Why?" Elias considered the question. "Because it's my job." "That is not an answer," she said. "It's the only one I have," he replied. The conversation ended there, but something changed. Valeth began to notice details. Elias adjusted environmental controls slightly when she worked long hours. He rerouted power to the lab during storms before she requested it. He left nutrient packs near her workstation without comment when she forgot to eat. It was not kindness in the way she understood it. It was quiet attention. The galaxy continued to laugh. Smugglers passed through nearby systems and joked about the exiled princess guarded by a soft-skinned species. Pirates marked the planet as a future stop, assuming its defenses were minimal. After all, what threat could one human pose? The first test came without warning. A small pirate vessel entered orbit, its transponder masked. It broadcast a demand for surrender, mocking in tone. Valeth heard the message through the station speakers and felt the old fear rise. She had no illusions. Pirates did not care about conquered law. To them, she was cargo. She looked toward the security feed, expecting chaos. Elias was already moving. He did not run. He did not shout. He activated systems Valeth did not know existed. The station lights dimmed, then stabilized. The pirate ship's signal began to distort, its words stretching into noise. Minutes passed. Then the ship left orbit, engines burning hard, its course unstable. No weapons fired. No alarms sounded. Valeth stared at the data logs. "What did you do?" she asked. "Adjusted the local signal environment," Elias said. "They couldn't trust their readings." "That's all?" "That's enough." Word spread quietly. Ships that came too close found their systems unreliable. Sensors reported empty space where the station was not. Navigation errors increased. Nothing dramatic happened, which made it worse. There was no story to tell, no victory to boast about. The galaxy laughed less, but it still laughed. Valeth returned to her work. But now she saw the planet differently. It was not empty. It was controlled. Elias had turned isolation into advantage. He had not asked permission. He had simply done it. One night cycle, she found him in the observation room, watching the stars. "Humans are new to the Concord," she said. "Yes," Elias replied. "You are not respected." "No. You are not feared." "Not yet." She studied him. "Why accept this post?" Elias did not answer right away. "Because no one else wanted it." "That is not true," she said. "Many would have taken it for prestige. They would have watched you," he said. "I was told to guard you." The difference mattered. Valeth felt something unfamiliar then. Not hope, not pride. Space. For the first time since her exile, she was not being measured. The galaxy had mocked the human guarding the barren princess. It did not yet understand what humans did when they decided someone mattered. Time passed differently on the barren world. Days were marked by system cycles, not suns, and silence was broken only by wind against shields, or the soft hum of machines. The galaxy slowly forgot Princess Valeth, which was exactly what the Concord had intended. But Elias Ward did not forget her. He expanded his routines. Every week, he walked the outer perimeter in full gear, even when sensors showed nothing. He checked systems that already reported perfect health. He rebuilt backups for backups, quietly improving designs that were never meant to be improved. Nothing he did looked impressive. That was the point. Valeth noticed the changes before anyone else. The lab equipment responded faster. Environmental controls adjusted more smoothly. New tools appeared in storage, labeled in clear, simple language. She had not requested them, yet they matched her research needs exactly. "You modified Concord property," she said one day, her tone neutral. "Yes," Elias replied. "That is illegal." "Yes." "Why do it?" "Because it helps." She studied him, waiting for more explanation. None came. Valeth returned to her work, but now her studies began to change. Before, she had followed her species' traditional models, trying to find where she had failed. Now, she started asking a different question. What if the model was wrong? Her people believed fertility was a direct response to dominance hormones and social hierarchy. Strong rulers produced strong heirs. Weakness disrupted the cycle. It was a belief supported by centuries of data, but that data had been filtered through tradition. Humans did not treat data that way. Elias never interfered, but when Valeth struggled with an equation or a simulation, she sometimes found reference files already unlocked. Not restricted files, just perspectives. Cross-species comparisons. Human research methods. Iterative failure analysis. "You shouldn't have access to these," she said. They didn't say you couldn't, Elias replied. She almost smiled. The first official inspection arrived in the 4th year. A Concorde science vessel entered the system, its presence announced with formal signals. Valeth felt a familiar tension rise in her chest. Inspections never meant improvement. They meant judgment. Elias met the inspectors at the docking bay. He followed protocol exactly, neither warm nor hostile. The inspectors were surprised by the condition of the station. Systems were stable beyond expected parameters. Supplies were well managed. No signs of decay, neglect, or psychological collapse. They did not like that. One inspector, a tall figure wrapped in status markings, observed Valeth through the lab window. "She appears functional," it said. "She is," Elias replied. "That was not expected. Expectations change." The inspectors attempted to access station logs. Several files were missing. "Where are the defense records?" one demanded. "There are no weapons," Elias said. "That is not what our scans indicate." Elias remained calm. Scans are often wrong. The inspection ended with frustration. No violations were found, but nothing matched projections. The inspectors left, unsettled. After they were gone, Valeth confronted Elias. "You hid systems from them." "Yes." "You could be punished." "Yes." "Why risk that?" Elias looked at her. "Because they weren't here for your safety." That night, Valeth dreamed of her childhood for the first time in years. Not of tests or failure, but of quiet moments before judgment began. She woke unsettled, yet clearer. Her research accelerated. She began experimenting with environmental stress variables, something her species avoided. Fertility tests were always done under controlled dominance conditions. She removed them, reduced pressure, increased stability, allowed her body to exist without constant evaluation. The results were confusing. Her biology responded, not in the way her species expected, but measurably. Cellular markers shifted. Dormant pathways activated briefly, then stabilized. Not failure. Adaptation. She ran the tests again, and again. Each time, the same pattern appeared. Valeth stared at the data for hours, her hands trembling. "Elias," she said softly. He was there instantly. "Yes? I am not barren." He did not celebrate. He did not question. "What do you need?" "I need time." "You have it." The galaxy, meanwhile, was paying attention again. A faction within the Concorde began reviewing old cases, searching for assets lost to political convenience. Valeth's name resurfaced. Not as a person, but as material. Even failed bloodlines carried value. A retrieval order was drafted. The fleet assigned was large, official, and legally protected. They did not plan an attack. They planned a collection. Elias detected them weeks before arrival. He did not inform the Concorde. He informed Valeth. "They're coming," he said. "I know," she replied, looking at her data. "They won't listen." "No." She took a slow breath. "Then we prepare." That was the moment Elias had been waiting for. Human protection doctrine was simple. Deny advantage. He expanded the station's hidden systems outward, extending influence into local space. He altered signal behavior, introduced delays, and layered subtle interference patterns that appeared natural. To any observer, the system looked empty. The fleet arrived confident. Their ships slowed as sensors disagreed. Distances shifted. Timestamps failed to align. Orders took seconds longer to reach targets. Not enough to trigger alarms. Enough to cause doubt. "Proceed," the fleet commander ordered. Nothing happened. Valeth watched from the observation deck, her heart steady. Elias stood beside her, silent. "They think control is force," she said. "Yes, but it is environment." "Yes." The fleet attempted docking protocols. Navigation systems refused precision. Autopilots disengaged. Manual control made things worse. Ships drifted, narrowly avoiding collision. No weapons fired. No threats spoken. Confusion spread. Behind them all, Valeth worked. She finalized her research package, compiling proof, methodology, and human-supported models. She encrypted it, Not to hide it, but to ensure it arrived intact. "Ready," she said. Elias transmitted the data across Concord channels. The galaxy stopped laughing. Not because of the defense systems, because the Baron Princess had returned something they could not ignore: truth. The fleet did not retreat. That surprised Elias more than anything else. They should have withdrawn to reassess. That was the logical move. But the Concord had existed too long on authority to accept uncertainty. Confusion was treated as resistance, and resistance demanded control. The commander issued new orders. Ships spread out, switching to independent navigation. That made the problem worse. The space around the barren world was quiet, but it was no longer neutral. Every small adjustment the fleet made pushed them further out of alignment. Vayleth watched the tactical display in silence. She was not afraid. That surprised her too. "They will try to take me by force," she said. "Yes," Elias replied. "And you will stop them." "I will try." "That is enough." The first landing craft detached from the flagship and began its descent. Its sensors reported a clear path. Its visual feed showed nothing but rock and shadow. Then the feed froze. Not cut, not destroyed, just paused, as if time had hesitated. The craft drifted, its thrusters firing too late, correcting too much. It scraped against the atmosphere shield and bounced away. Systems scrambling to recover. The fleet commander demanded answers. There were none. Inside the station, Elias moved with purpose. He was not reacting. He was executing plans written years ago. Human preparation was not about knowing what would happen. It was about making sure options existed when things went wrong. Vayleth followed him to the secondary lab, carrying a data core pressed tightly against her chest. "What happens if they break through?" she asked. "Then we leave," Elias said. "Leave where?" "Anywhere they are not." The idea was simple and impossible at the same time. Another ship attempted a forced insertion. This one used older systems, less dependent on automation. It did better. Too well. Alarms sounded. "They're adapting," Vayleth said. "Yes." Elias's hands moved quickly across controls. He did not increase interference. He reduced it. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Letting them think they're winning." The ship stabilized. It entered low orbit successfully and prepared for descent. The fleet commander felt confidence return. The human guard had tricks, but tricks always ran out. Then Elias changed the environment again. Gravity shifted slightly, not enough to be dangerous, but enough to alter fuel calculations. The ship compensated. Its margin vanished. The commander ordered a halt. That hesitation saved the ship, but it changed something else. The fleet stopped acting like an authority and started acting like a threat under stress. Weapons powered up. Vayleth felt the shift immediately. "They will destroy the station," she said. "Yes," Elias replied. "You can't stop that." "No." She closed her eyes. When she opened them, her expression was calm. "Then it's time." They moved together. The escape vessel was small, unmarked, and old. It had been hidden beneath the station since the first year. Its presence buried in layers of false inventory. It was not fast. It was not armed. It was reliable. As Elias prepared the launch, Vayleth activated the final transmission. She did not send it to the fleet. She sent it to the Concord. Every channel, every archive, every science council and political chamber. Her voice was steady. She explained her findings simply. No accusations, no anger, just evidence. She showed that her species' fertility model was incomplete. That stress-based dominant systems suppressed adaptive pathways. That individuals like her were not failures, but alternatives. Stable environments allowed traits to emerge that hierarchy crushed. She included human methodology, repetition, peer challenge, ethical limits. She ended with a single statement. "I was called barren because my society did not know how to listen to its own biology." The transmission ended. The fleet fired. The station's shields held for seconds. Not long enough. Elias launched the escape vessel as the first impact hit. The force knocked them sideways, alarms screaming as systems compensated. The station behind them fractured, pieces drifting away into the dark. Vayleth watched it go, not with grief, but acceptance. That place had given her something more valuable than safety. It had given her clarity. The fleet detected the escape vessel almost immediately. Pursuit? Valeth asked. Yes. Can we outrun them? No. She nodded. Then we don't. Elias altered course toward a dense debris field formed by the station's remains. The fleet hesitated. Large ships did not like uncertainty. Small ships could survive it. The escape vessel slipped through broken metal and flickering fields, its profile vanishing among wreckage. Sensors struggled to separate signal from noise. The fleet slowed. That delay was enough, not for escape, for attention. The Concorde response came faster than anyone expected. Valeth's data spread like fire through institutions built on assumptions. Scientists who had once dismissed her began running simulations. Some tried to disprove her. They failed. Others found confirmation in their own suppressed data. Political leaders felt the ground shift beneath them. Entire bloodline policies rested on ideas now proven flawed. The fleet commander received new orders. Stand down. The ships powered down weapons. Pursuit stopped. Elias did not relax. Orders can change, he said. Yes, Valeth replied. But minds have begun too. They waited in silence. Hours passed. Then a single Concorde envoy ship approached, broadcasting neutrality codes. Valeth straightened. This is where it changes. Yes. They docked. The envoy was small and deliberately unarmed. Its representative spoke with careful respect. Princess Valeth, it said. You are requested to return to the Concorde. I will not return as a subject, she replied. Understood. Elias watched quietly as Valeth stepped forward. She did not look to him for permission. She did not need it. I will return as a scientist, she said. And as proof, the envoy accepted. As they departed the system under Concorde escort, the galaxy began to adjust its understanding. News spread, not of a battle, not of a human victory, but of a mistake corrected too late. Valeth stood in the observation chamber, watching stars slide past. Elias stood nearby, as always. They mocked you, she said. Yes, they mocked me. Yes, they were wrong. Yes, she turned to him. You guarded me when I was nothing to them. You were never nothing, Elias said. That was the moment Valeth truly returned, not to power, but to herself. Valeth returned to the Concorde not as a subject, but as someone who carried knowledge no one could ignore. The galaxy expected a broken princess. Someone humbled by exile, someone grateful to be restored to ceremonial status. Instead, she stepped through the docking bay with quiet confidence. Her hair was unbound, her expression calm, and the data core she carried glinted with authority. Elias Ward followed behind, silent as ever, observing protocol while silently ensuring her safety. The halls of the Concorde were crowded with officials, scientists, and representatives of political houses. They had all received her transmissions months ago, but seeing her in person made the reality undeniable. The barren princess was no longer barren. She had returned stronger, not because of biology alone, but because of knowledge, patience, and experience cultivated under human guidance. The first to approach was an elder scientist, one who had overseen the genetic trials years before. His voice was careful, almost hesitant. Princess Valeth, your reports, your findings are unexpected. Yes, she said simply. They are. He tried to maintain authority. But the implications, your body, the adaptive pathways, this changes everything we believed about House Thriss. Valeth tilted her head slightly. It does. Not just House Thriss. It changes how every species that relies on rigid hierarchies will understand reproduction. Flexibility matters. Environment matters. Expectation alone does not dictate outcome. A murmur passed through the observers. Some were incredulous. Others were furious. Valeth did not flinch. She had prepared for this. Her next step was the political council. It was crowded with officials who had once dismissed her as worthless. They waited, expecting humility or apologies. Instead, Valeth presented her findings with clarity, showing not only the biology but the methodology she had used, carefully guided by human logic and research principles. She spoke plainly, without anger or complaint. She explained every anomaly, every test, every adaptation that had gone unnoticed. The council attempted to interrupt, challenge, or downplay her evidence, but she answered each point directly, citing records and experiments. The human guard at her side, Elias Ward, never spoke unless necessary. His presence alone reminded them of something they had long underestimated. Humans did not act for ceremony or fear. They acted for purpose, and they protected those who mattered to them. When the council questioned the safety of her methods, she produced detailed simulations and redundancies. The data was undeniable. Every prediction that had once declared her worthless was now obsolete. She had proven that what her people called failure was merely a misunderstanding of potential. Then came the political question. What now? Could she reclaim status in her house? Would the Concord reassign her? Valeth looked over the room calmly. I do not seek status. I seek understanding. I have learned that authority is meaningless without knowledge. I will continue my research and ensure that what I have discovered benefits the galaxy, not just one house or one ruler. There was silence. Officials struggled to reconcile their expectations with reality. They had mocked the human who guarded her and the princess she had been labeled. Now, both of them stood before them, undeniable proof that assumptions could be deadly. One ambitious politician finally spoke. And the human? He asked. He acted beyond expectation. Did he not? A lone human, against fleets and systems. Surely the Concord will reward him? Valeth turned her gaze to Elias. His expression remained neutral, yet there was a faint glint in his eyes. Humans do not act for reward, she said. They act for responsibility. He protected me when no one else would. That is enough recognition. The council tried to argue, but Valeth held firm. Recognition could be granted, but it could not be demanded. Elias did not need titles or medals. His actions spoke louder than any ceremony. Months passed as her research was shared across the Concord. Entire policies were re-evaluated. Genetic hierarchies were re-examined. Old experiments were revisited, and many species found that their assumptions had cost them generations of potential. Valeth worked tirelessly, aided quietly by Elias, who ensured safety, logistics, and coordination without interfering in her scientific decisions. Through all of this, Valeth began to understand the full scope of what had occurred. She had been labeled barren, useless, even invisible. She had been confined to a lonely world with one human who refused to mock her, pity her, or abandon her. In that space of trust and quiet perseverance, she discovered her own strength. She learned that value was not determined by expectation, but by opportunity and resilience. The Concord eventually held a formal assembly to address her findings. Scientists, politicians, and representatives from distant houses crowded the chamber. The air was tense with anticipation. Valeth entered with Elias at her side, and the assembly immediately felt the difference. This was not a humbled subject returning. This was a force of understanding, calm and deliberate, capable of reshaping the galaxy's perspective. Valeth spoke first, outlining the scientific breakthroughs with precision and clarity. Every point was supported with data, and every conclusion challenged existing dogma. Questions came, as they always do in any rigorous forum, but she answered them with logic and patience. The assembly could not argue with results. They could only absorb them. Then she addressed the human element. I would not have reached this understanding without guidance, she said, without observation, without protection, without respect from someone who refused to let me fail out of neglect or amusement. The human who guarded me taught me patience, endurance, and strategic thinking. That is a lesson I hope the galaxy learns from as well. The room fell silent. Never before had a representative so openly acknowledged a human guard as integral to scientific discovery and survival. It was more than protocol. It was respect. The elder scientist who had once doubted her stood, voice trembling. The galaxy has misjudged humanity. Your loyalty, your preparation, your resolve, It is extraordinary. Valeth nodded. Humans do not seek glory. They do not act for recognition. But when they decide someone matters, they act with a consistency and patience few species can match. That is why I survived. That is why the world remains intact. That is why knowledge now changes the galaxy. Throughout her speeches, Elias remained quiet, observing protocol. He did not seek attention. He did not demand praise. Yet every eye in the assembly knew he had been the unseen factor in everything Valeth had achieved. After the assembly, Valeth was approached by young researchers, eager to collaborate. Entire teams asked for her methods, her data, and her insight. She accepted them, careful to guide them with human-inspired methodology. Experiment, observe, fail, adapt. She encouraged ethical analysis, careful repetition, and autonomy. The galaxy's knowledge would grow faster than ever before. One evening, in the quiet of her lab, Valeth finally spoke to Elias alone. "You know, they still expected me to be broken," she said. "You were not," he replied. "No," she admitted, smiling faintly. "And I am not the same person who left that world. I am stronger, smarter, more certain of myself. Because you never gave up on me. Because you never treated me as nothing." Elias nodded. "That is what humans do." "And what will the galaxy do now?" she asked. "It will adapt," he said, "just as you have." Valeth leaned back, looking out at the stars beyond the Concord station. The galaxy had laughed, mocked, and dismissed her. It had mocked the human who stood beside her, but both of them had returned changed, capable, and undeniable. And the galaxy would never forget the lesson. When humans decide someone matters, they will act with patience, strategy, and a quiet, relentless strength that cannot be measured by tradition or expectation. Valeth understood now that the true power of survival was not in bloodlines, titles, or fleets. It was in trust, resilience, and protection. It was in the knowledge that even the smallest, most underestimated beings could change everything if they chose to act. The galaxy had mocked the human guard and the barren princess, and both had returned completely changed. They returned not seeking revenge, not seeking glory, but armed with truth, understanding, and the subtle, undeniable power of perseverance. Elias stood silently beside her, as he always had, as she prepared the next report, the next research plan, the next step toward a galaxy that would finally understand the value of patience, observation, and action. The galaxy had learned the wrong lesson for centuries. Now, it would learn the right one. And the lesson began with a human and a princess who refused to accept the verdict of others. The galaxy had mocked them, underestimated them, and labeled them irrelevant. Yet in their quiet resolve, they had proven that humans and those they choose to protect could redefine the fate of worlds. Valeth turned to Elias one final time. "The galaxy may try to ignore us again," she said. Elias's gaze was steady. "It will try, but it will not succeed." For the first time since her exile, Valeth felt a calm certainty. The galaxy had mocked them, yes, but now the galaxy would remember them forever, not for fear, not for force, but for the quiet, patient, and unstoppable power of human resolve, and the courage it inspired in those they chose to protect. And that, she realized, was stronger than any throne, more enduring than any bloodline, and more unbreakable than any system the Concord could build. The galaxy would never mock a human guard again. It would learn to respect them, even if it took a lifetime. And Valeth and Elias would be there, ready, quiet, and unyielding, proving that the most underestimated force in the universe could change everything, simply by choosing to act.